The scary thing about betrayal isn't finding out your wife cheated. It's realizing you stopped being surprised long before you found proof. That thought was running through my head at 1:12 in the morning, while Claire slept beside me like nothing in the world had changed. The bedroom was dark except for the soft blue glow of her phone charging on the nightstand. Rain tapped lightly against the windows of our house outside Denver, steady and cold. The kind of spring rain that makes the whole neighborhood feel half asleep. Claire shifted under the blanket and turned toward me, one arm brushing against my chest out of habit more than affection. 6 years ago, that touch would have meant something. Now it felt rehearsed, like muscle memory surviving after the feeling died. I stared at the ceiling fan turning slow circles overhead and listened to her breathing. Calm, even, perfectly controlled. That was Claire's real talent. Not marketing, not presentations, not the polished corporate smile she wore at networking dinners downtown. It was control. She knew how to make lies look elegant. The strange part is people think betrayal begins with one moment. One text, one hotel room, one mistake. That's Hollywood. Real betrayal starts quietly. It starts with small absences, tiny fractures, a laugh that sounds different, a phone that suddenly lives face down, a woman who says she's exhausted but somehow still smiles at messages arriving after midnight. Looking back now, I think part of me knew almost a year earlier, maybe longer. The human brain is strange like that. It protects you from truths your heart isn't ready to carry. Claire murmured something in her sleep and rolled away from me. The movement pulled the blanket slightly down her shoulder. Lavender perfume lingered faintly against the sheets. Except Claire hadn't worn lavender in years. Her perfume was usually vanilla and sandalwood. Soft, expensive, familiar. This smelled sharper, colder. I remember staring into the darkness thinking maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe stress was twisting ordinary things into suspicion. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to believe that. Because once doubt enters your marriage, everything becomes evidence. Every late meeting feels staged. Every smile feels measured. Every silence starts sounding like a secret. Earlier that night, Claire came home around 10:30 wearing a charcoal gray pantsuit and heels she complained hurt too much to walk in. She kissed me on the cheek while dropping her purse beside the kitchen island. "Long day," she sighed, opening the fridge for sparkling water. I nodded from the couch, ESPN playing quietly in the background. "How was the client dinner?" I asked. "Boring," she said immediately. Too immediately. "Mostly budget talk." Then she smiled. Fast, clean, professional. The kind of smile that worked on clients and strangers and probably me for far too many years. I watched her disappear upstairs carrying her phone in one hand and a half-empty glass in the other. 30 seconds later, I heard the shower running. Another thing that wasn't normal. Claire always showered in the morning before work. Always. I sat there alone in the kitchen listening to water rush through pipes while the digital clock above the microwave blinked 10:47 p.m. in soft green numbers. The whole house felt strange. Too quiet. Like something had already happened inside it and I was the last person to know. That's the thing nobody tells you about marriage. Sometimes the distance doesn't arrive all at once. Sometimes it creeps into your home slowly enough that you adjust to it without realizing you're disappearing inside your own life. And sometime around that spring, without saying it out loud, I started watching my wife the same way detectives watch suspects. Quietly, patiently, waiting for the story to stop making sense. The next morning felt painfully normal, and somehow that was the worst part. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows in thin golden stripes while the coffee maker hissed and clicked beside the sink. Claire stood at the counter scrolling through emails on her phone, with one hand wrapped around a ceramic mug from Aspen, the one we bought during our 10th anniversary trip. She looked effortless in an oversized cream sweater and black leggings, hair tied loosely back, the kind of suburban elegance women in Colorado somehow mastered without trying. If somebody walked past our house at that moment, they would have seen a successful couple starting another ordinary Tuesday. They would have been wrong. "You were quiet this morning," Claire said without looking up from her phone. Her tone was light, casual, but I noticed the tiny pause before she spoke. like she was checking my mood before deciding which version of herself to wear. I poured coffee into my travel mug and shrugged. Just tired. She nodded slowly. You have been working too much lately. That almost made me laugh. The irony sat there between us like a loaded gun wrapped in silk. Claire suddenly cared about distance. Claire suddenly noticed long hours. 6 months earlier, she barely looked up from her laptop when I walked through the door. Funny how people become attentive when they think you might be paying attention too. Outside, the sprinklers clicked rhythmically across the lawns lining our subdivision. A jogger passed the house wearing headphones and reflective sunglasses. Somewhere down the street, a garage door rumbled open. Everything looked steady, predictable, American. And standing there in our kitchen, I realized something dangerous. Betrayal does not destroy normal life immediately. It hides inside it. Claire walked over and kissed my cheek softly before reaching for her purse. I might be late tonight, she said. Ryan scheduled another strategy meeting with the Phoenix account. There it was again. Ryan. Casual. Natural. Like his name belonged in our marriage now. I kept my expression neutral and took a sip of coffee. Another late one? Quarterly reviews are coming up. She smiled faintly. You know how corporate life works. Yeah. I was starting to. She left 10 minutes later in her white Audi SUV, taillights disappearing around the corner, while Coldplay played softly through the kitchen speakers behind me. I stood there longer than I should have, staring out the front window. Not angry. Not yet. Mostly confused. Because when people imagine infidelity, they imagine dramatic clues. Lipstick stains. Strange receipts. Obvious lies. Reality is quieter. Reality is your wife using another man's name too comfortably over breakfast. I drove downtown to Hartwell Mechanical just after 7:30. Denver traffic crawled beneath gray clouds hanging low over the mountains. Pickup trucks filled the interstate beside Teslas and delivery vans, while local radio hosts joked about the Rockies bullpen ruining another season. Normal life kept moving forward. At work, I spent most of the morning reviewing pressure valve schematics and pretending my brain still worked the same way it used to. But around 11:40 my phone buzzed with a notification from Claire. Lunch with clients. Talk later. Short, clean, efficient. I stared at the message longer than necessary. Then something strange happened. My mind stopped focusing on her words and started focusing on patterns. Timing. Rhythm. I opened our text thread and slowly scrolled upward. Weeks of delayed replies. Random late meetings. Sudden business dinners. Entire conversations that felt copied and pasted from the same script. Once you notice a pattern, you cannot unsee it. That afternoon, I sat alone in my office, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights while snow clouds rolled over downtown Denver outside the windows. And for the first time, I stopped asking myself whether Claire was hiding something. Instead, I started wondering how long she had been practicing the lie. 3 days later, I found myself sitting in the parking lot outside a steakhouse in Cherry Creek, staring at Claire through rain-speckled glass while my truck idled softly beneath me. I wish I could say I planned to follow her. That would make me sound smarter, more controlled. Truth is, I ended up there by accident. At least that is what I told myself at first. Hartwell let us out early because a spring storm was rolling down from the mountains. Thick gray clouds swallowing half the skyline by 4 in the afternoon. I remember driving aimlessly for 20 minutes, trying to shake the pressure building in my chest when I saw Claire's Audi parked outside Delmonico's. White SUV. Personalized Colorado plates. No ambiguity. I checked the time on the dashboard. 4:37 p.m. Funny thing was, Claire told me she had a budget review meeting across town until at least 7. I sat there gripping the steering wheel while windshield wipers dragged rhythmically across the glass. Part of me wanted to drive away immediately. Mature people do not spy on their spouses in restaurant parking lots. Mature people communicate. Mature people trust. But trust had already started dying inside me, and both of us knew it whether we admitted it or not. Through the front windows, I finally saw her. Claire sat near the back corner booth wearing a fitted black blazer over a cream blouse, legs crossed elegantly beneath dim amber lighting. Across from her sat Ryan Mercer. Mid-40s maybe, athletic build, expensive haircut, the kind of man who looked like he practiced smiling in mirrors before sales meetings. He leaned forward while talking and Claire laughed softly, touching his wrist for half a second before pulling her hand back. Tiny gesture, barely noticeable, unless you are her husband, unless you have spent 14 years memorizing her body language without realizing it. My stomach tightened in a slow cold knot. Not rage, not yet. Something stranger, recognition, like finally seeing the shape of a problem your instincts noticed months earlier. I kept watching. Ryan said something that made Claire tilt her head back slightly, exposing her throat while she laughed again. Comfortable, relaxed, familiar. There is a difference between coworkers having dinner and two people sharing private gravity. I saw it immediately. The terrifying thing about intuition is how quickly it becomes certainty once proof arrives. My phone buzzed suddenly in the cup holder. Claire. I stared at her name glowing against the screen while 20 yards away she smiled at another man. For one insane second, I almost answered normally, like nothing was wrong, like I was still living inside the version of marriage I thought we had. Instead, I let it ring twice before picking up. "Hey," I said calmly. Claire's voice came smooth and effortless through the speakers. "Just wanted to let you know the meeting is running long. We might order dinner here." Such a harmless word, such a loaded one. I looked through the rain-streaked windshield at my wife lifting a wine glass while speaking lies directly into my ear. "No problem," I said. "Drive safe later." "I will," she answered softly. "Love you." There was a time those words could steady me after the worst day imaginable. Now they sounded procedural, like signing paperwork. The call ended. Inside the restaurant, Ryan leaned closer toward her again while she smiled down at the table. And suddenly something inside me became very still. That was the moment I stopped looking for innocent explanations. Not because I caught them kissing, not because I found some dramatic confession. It was simpler than that. Claire lied too easily, smoothly, without hesitation. People who still love you usually struggle while deceiving you. Claire sounded relaxed, practiced, professional. I sat there another minute listening to rain strike the roof of my truck before finally putting the vehicle into drive. And as I pulled away from the restaurant, one thought followed me all the way home. The affair was probably not new. After that night at Delmonico's, something inside me changed shape. I still went to work every morning. I still paid bills, mowed the lawn on Saturdays, waved at neighbors collecting mail at the curb. From the outside, nothing collapsed. But internally, my marriage stopped feeling emotional and started feeling investigative. That is the part people rarely talk about. Once trust cracks, your brain begins collecting evidence even when your heart begs it not to. Claire came home around 9 that night carrying takeout containers and smelling faintly like expensive wine and rainwater. "You should have eaten without me," she said while kicking off her heels near the front door. Her tone sounded warm, caring even. She moved around the kitchen unpacking food while talking casually about clients and quarterly projections like she had spent the evening discussing spreadsheets instead of laughing across candlelight with another man. I sat at the island watching her carefully. "How was the meeting?" I asked. Claire sighed dramatically. Long Ryan would turn a 30-minute review into a hostage situation if he could. She smiled after saying his name. Tiny smile, almost invisible. But once you notice patterns, you start seeing them everywhere. I nodded slowly and opened the doors do not close once opened. The phone unlocked immediately with Face ID when angled toward Claire sleeping beside me. That detail alone told me how comfortable she had become. Careless people are usually confident people. Her messages loaded silently onto the screen. And there he was, Ryan Mercer. The thread stretched for months. Hundreds of messages, inside jokes, complaints about work, complaints about me, pictures of cocktails, hotel bars, airport lounges. Nothing graphic, nothing dramatic. Somehow that made it worse. This was not reckless passion. This was intimacy, slow, familiar, built over time while I sat across from her at dinner tables believing we were simply growing older together. I scrolled upward with shaking hands while the glow from the screen reflected across the ceiling. One message stopped me cold. Ryan wrote, "Does Ethan suspect anything yet?" Claire answered almost immediately, "He notices less than you think." That sentence hollowed me out in a way I still struggle to explain. Not because she cheated. Deep down I already knew. It was the disrespect that hit hardest. The certainty. The way she reduced 14 years of marriage into a joke shared privately with another man. Beside me, Claire breathed softly in her sleep while cold blue light from her phone washed across the blankets. And staring at those messages in the middle of the night, I realized something terrifying. My wife was not afraid of losing me anymore. She thought she already had me figured out. The strange thing about discovering the truth is that the pain does not hit all at once. Hollywood teaches people to expect explosions, shouting, tears, immediate collapse. Real life is colder than that. Real betrayal settles into your bloodstream slowly, like winter air creeping through cracks in an old house. The morning after I read Claire's messages, I still woke up at 6:30. I still shaved in the same bathroom mirror. I still drove the same 32 minutes downtown with sports radio muttering through the speakers while traffic crawled beneath gray Colorado skies. Outwardly, nothing changed. Internally, it felt like someone had quietly removed the floor beneath my life. At work, I could barely focus on anything longer than 5 minutes. Numbers blurred together on engineering reports. Emails piled up unanswered. Around noon, I found myself staring blankly through the office windows, watching snow drift lightly over downtown Denver, even though spring had technically already started. A younger engineer named Travis walked into my office holding valve schematics and stopped mid-sentence. "You good, Ethan?" he asked carefully. I realized then I had been gripping a coffee cup hard enough for my knuckles to turn white. "Yeah," I said automatically, "just tired." Funny how often adults use that word when their lives are falling apart. Tired. As if exhaustion can explain emotional earthquakes. That afternoon, Claire texted me around 3:15. "Thinking pasta tonight. You okay with Italian?" I stared at the message for a long time. Not because of the food. Because of the normalcy. She talked to me the same way people discuss weather forecasts or grocery lists. Like she genuinely believed our marriage still existed in its original form. Maybe that is what liars do after enough time passes. Maybe they stop viewing deception as deception and start seeing it as routine maintenance. I answered simply, "Sounds good." 20 seconds later, she replied with a heart emoji. That almost broke me more than the affair itself. There is something deeply unsettling about kindness from someone actively betraying you. It makes reality feel unstable, like standing in a beautiful house with a cracked foundation nobody else can see. That night, Claire cooked pasta while soft jazz played from the kitchen speaker beside the stove. Garlic and olive oil filled the house. She wore one of my old college sweatshirts with her hair loosely tied back, moving around the kitchen like the version of herself I used to love without hesitation. At one point, she looked over her shoulder and smiled warmly. "Can you grab the Parmesan from the fridge?" she asked. Such a simple domestic sentence. Such an ordinary marriage moment. I remember opening the refrigerator and suddenly realizing I did not know which version of Claire was real anymore. The woman cooking dinner barefoot in our kitchen or the woman texting another man after midnight while lying beside me in bed. Maybe both. Maybe that was the terrifying part. During dinner, she talked about office politics and upcoming travel plans while I listened quietly, studying her the way people study storms forming offshore. Every now and then she reached for her wine glass while her phone rested face down beside her plate. Always face down now. Once you notice behavior changes, they start multiplying everywhere. "You are quiet again," Claire finally said, twirling pasta around her fork. "Everything okay at work?" I nodded slowly. "Just a lot on my mind." She gave me a sympathetic smile. "You should talk to me more." That sentence almost made me laugh out loud. Instead, I took a sip of wine and looked at the woman across from me. 14 years together, vacations, Christmas mornings, hospital visits, mortgage payments, thousands of ordinary moments stitched into a life. And somehow we had arrived here, sitting at the same dinner table while she encouraged emotional honesty with one hand and hid another relationship with the other. Later that night, Claire fell asleep watching television with her head resting lightly against my shoulder. The house was dark except for flickering blue light from the screen. Outside, wind pushed softly against the windows, while snow melted slowly along the sidewalks under street lamps. I looked down at my wife sleeping beside me and understood something painful. The affair was no longer the real problem. The real problem was that I could no longer tell where the performance ended and the marriage began. People assume the hardest part of betrayal is discovering the affair. It is not. The hardest part is waking up every morning afterward and pretending your reality still fits together normally. About 2 weeks passed after I found the messages on Claire's phone, and by then I had developed routines I never thought I would have inside my own marriage. I noticed patterns the way air traffic controllers notice movement on radar screens. Which nights she stayed late, how long it took her to answer texts, which outfits appeared before client dinners. The frightening thing about suspicion is how quickly it sharpens your senses. One Thursday evening, I came home early because a supplier meeting got canceled downtown. Snow had finally stopped falling, leaving the neighborhood wet and silver beneath fading sunlight. Kids rode bicycles through puddles while sprinklers clicked across front lawns like tiny metronomes. Normal suburban life, the kind people spend decades trying to build. Claire's Audi was already in the driveway when I pulled in beside it around 5:15. That surprised me immediately because she told me she would be at the office until at least 7. I walked into the house quietly, expecting music or television noise. Instead, the downstairs felt strangely silent. Then I heard her voice upstairs. Soft, warm, different. Not corporate Claire, not polite wife Claire. Something lighter, more intimate. I froze near the staircase without meaning to. "I know," she whispered, followed by a quiet laugh. "He still has no idea." My chest tightened so hard it almost stole my breath. The hallway suddenly felt narrower, hotter. I stood perfectly still listening to floorboards creak faintly overhead while blood pounded heavily inside my ears. "Next weekend should work," Claire continued softly. I told him it is another conference. Silence followed for several seconds before she laughed again. Lower this time. Comfortable. Familiar. Then came the sound of footsteps moving toward the bedroom doorway upstairs. Instantly, nothing dramatic enough to confront directly. Just tiny cuts delivered casually enough to make you question whether they happened at all. One Friday evening, we attended a rooftop gathering hosted by one of Claire's co-workers near Lodo. Warm spring air drifted across downtown Denver, while string lights hung overhead and country music played softly through outdoor speakers. The skyline glowed gold against the mountains in the distance, and people moved around balancing cocktails and networking conversations like they had rehearsed the choreography beforehand. Claire looked stunning that night in a dark green dress with silver earrings catching the light whenever she turned her head. I remember noticing how easy it still was to love pieces of her despite everything I knew. That is another ugly truth nobody warns you about. Betrayal does not immediately erase attachment. Sometimes your heart keeps reaching for someone long after your brain understands the danger. Around 9:30, I found myself standing beside a small group discussing home renovations and rising property taxes when Claire walked over laughing with Ryan beside her. He carried himself with effortless confidence, one hand tucked casually into his pocket while he smiled too comfortably at my wife. "There he is," Ryan said warmly when he spotted me. "Claire keeps telling everyone you are basically the quiet genius husband." I forced a polite smile. "I do not know about genius. Trust me," Claire interrupted with a playful laugh, touching Ryan lightly on the arm. Ethan could spend 3 hours explaining pressure valves without blinking. The group laughed politely. So did I. But something inside me tightened instantly. Tone matters more than words sometimes. Claire's voice carried that subtle edge people use when reducing someone into a harmless caricature. Ryan smirked slightly while sipping his drink. "Sounds thrilling," he joked. "It pays the mortgage," I answered calmly. "And the vacations," Claire added quickly, smiling toward the group again. Another round of laughter followed. Tiny moment, barely noticeable, but standing there beneath rooftop lights with the Denver skyline behind us, I suddenly understood something painful. Claire no longer protected my dignity in public. That instinct had disappeared. People who still love you carefully guard the way others see you. They do not subtly perform superiority at your expense. Later that night, I stood alone near the balcony railing, watching traffic move below like streams of red and white light cutting through downtown streets. Cold air drifted across the rooftop, carrying faint music and distant sirens through the city. Claire stood 30 feet away, laughing with Ryan near the bar. Every few seconds, he leaned slightly closer while she tilted toward him naturally without thinking. Human bodies reveal truths mouths try to hide. A man from accounting stepped beside me holding a bourbon glass. "Your wife is impressive," he said casually. "Ryan talks about her non-stop at the office." I kept my expression neutral. "I am sure he does." The guy chuckled awkwardly before wandering off again. And there it was. Confirmation wrapped inside ordinary conversation. The kind people accidentally reveal when they assume you already know. I stared out across downtown Denver while cool wind pressed against my suit jacket and realized something chilling. Claire and Ryan were becoming careless because the relationship no longer felt temporary to them. Affairs start in secrecy, but comfort eventually turns secrecy into arrogance. On the drive home, Claire scrolled through her phone while soft radio music filled the silence between us. Around midnight, she finally looked over from the passenger seat. "You were quiet tonight," she said. I kept my eyes on the road ahead. "Just observing." Claire smiled faintly at that answer and returned her attention to the screen glowing in her hands. She had no idea how honest I was being. The real betrayal finally stopped being physical in my mind sometime during June. Before that, I kept obsessing over logistics, hotels, messages, excuses. I thought the affair itself was the deepest wound. I was wrong. The deepest wound came the night I realized Claire no longer respected me enough to hide who she had become. It happened at our house during a Saturday cookout with neighbors and a few people from Claire's office. Summer had finally settled over Denver by then. Warm, dry evenings stretching late into the night while sunlight painted everything gold until almost 9 o'clock. Our backyard smelled like grilled burgers, fresh-cut grass, and charcoal smoke drifting lazily across fences, while country music played through the outdoor speakers mounted near the patio. From the outside, it looked like another perfect suburban gathering. couples laughing around the fire pit, beer bottles sweating in coolers, string lights glowing overhead while distant thunder rolled softly somewhere beyond the mountains. Claire moved through the party effortlessly, wine glass in hand, smiling at everyone with the same polished warmth that once made me feel lucky just standing beside her. Ryan showed up around 7:30 carrying an expensive bottle of bourbon like he belonged there. That detail mattered more than I admitted at the time. People do not casually bring premium bourbon to a married coworker's house unless boundaries already died somewhere earlier. "Ethan," Ryan said warmly while shaking my hand near the grill. "Man, your backyard setup is incredible." "Appreciate it," I answered calmly. Claire walked over beside him wearing white jeans and a fitted black top, sunlight catching the gold bracelet on her wrist. "Ryan thinks we should host more often," she said with a laugh. "We, again, tiny word, massive meaning." The evening drifted on normally after that. Neighbors talked about rising mortgage rates and vacation plans, while someone's kids chased fireflies near the fence line. At one point, I stood near the grill flipping burgers while Claire and Ryan sat together with two others around the patio table. I was not trying to eavesdrop. I did not need to anymore. But then Claire laughed loudly enough for me to hear one sentence clearly over the music. "Ethan would survive a zombie apocalypse as long as somebody let him organize the garage first." Everyone laughed, Ryan hardest of all. It sounds harmless written out like that, even funny, but tone changes everything. Claire was not teasing me like a loving wife anymore. She was performing me, reducing me into an amusing, predictable character for another man's entertainment. I glanced over quietly. Ryan leaned back in his chair grinning while Claire shook her head playfully and took another sip of wine. Then came the moment I still think about sometimes. Ryan looked directly at her and said, "Honestly, you deserve somebody who actually gets your world." Silence lasted maybe half a second. Not long, but long enough. Claire did not correct him, did not defend me, did not even look uncomfortable. She simply smiled down at her wine glass like the sentence pleased her more than it should have. Something cold settled inside my chest then. Not rage, acceptance. Because in that moment I finally understood the affair was no longer hidden emotionally. They had started building a shared reality where I existed as an obstacle instead of a husband. Later that night, after guests left and the backyard fell quiet except for sprinklers ticking softly in the dark, Claire stood beside the kitchen sink rinsing glasses while I wiped down the patio table outside. Through the window, I watched her smiling faintly at her phone again. Soft smile, private smile, the kind people save for someone emotionally dangerous. 14 years together and somehow I had become background noise inside my own marriage. Claire looked up suddenly and noticed me watching through the glass. For a brief second our eyes met across the kitchen window. Her smile disappeared instantly. Not guilt, instinct. And right there under dim kitchen lights with water running softly from the faucet, I realized something irreversible. Claire was not afraid of hurting me anymore. She was only afraid of being caught too early. The shift happened quietly after that cookout. Not overnight, not dramatically, just slowly enough that nobody except me could see it happening. By July, I stopped checking Claire's messages every night because I no longer needed confirmation. The affair had become background noise inside the marriage. Like a crack in the ceiling you notice every morning but stop reacting to emotionally. Instead, my attention moved somewhere else entirely. Strategy. I started waking up earlier than usual, around 5:30 most mornings. Sitting alone at the kitchen island with black coffee, while the neighborhood still slept beneath pale Colorado sunrise. Sprinklers hissed softly across lawns outside and delivery trucks rolled through distant streets, while I stared at spreadsheets on my laptop instead of sports scores. Mortgage accounts, retirement funds, joint credit cards, insurance policies. 14 years of shared life looks romantic in photographs. On paper, it looks like paperwork. The strange thing was Claire barely noticed the change in me. She thought my silence meant defeat. That was her mistake. One Tuesday afternoon during lunch break, I met privately with a family attorney named Daniel Mercer in a quiet downtown office overlooking 16th Street. Late summer sunlight reflected off glass towers outside, while tourists wandered between restaurants restaurants below carrying shopping bags and iced coffee. Daniel looked to be in his late 50s, silver hair, calm eyes, the kind of man who had spent decades watching marriages collapse professionally without reacting emotionally anymore. He listened carefully while I explained everything without exaggeration. The messages, the lies, the emotional affair that probably became physical months earlier. Daniel folded his hands together once I finished. "Do you want revenge?" he asked evenly. "Or do you want protection?" That question stayed with me longer than I expected. Revenge sounds satisfying in movies. Real life is different. Revenge keeps you emotionally tied to the person destroying you. Protection creates distance. "Protection," I answered quietly. Daniel nodded once like he already expected that answer. Then he started outlining practical steps with the calm precision of a pilot discussing weather conditions. Separate financial records, documented timelines, asset protection, communication logs. Nothing dramatic. No screaming courtroom fantasy. Just preparation. Adult preparation. Walking back toward my truck afterward, I realized something strange. For the first time in months, my breathing felt steady. Clarity does that sometimes. Pain becomes easier to carry once it has direction. At home, Claire remained wrapped inside her double life, moving through routines with growing confidence. Some nights she stayed out until 10 or 11 claiming networking events or client dinners, while I sat quietly on the back patio listening to distant thunder roll over the mountains with a whiskey glass untouched beside me. She no longer even seemed nervous when lying. One evening, she walked into the kitchen wearing a fitted navy dress and silver heels while adjusting earrings in the hallway mirror. "Do you think this is too formal for a work dinner?" she asked casually. I looked up from my laptop slowly. "Depends who the dinner is really for." The words slipped out before I planned them. Claire froze almost invisibly. Just 1 second. Then she laughed lightly. "What does that mean?" I held her gaze for a moment before shrugging calmly. "Nothing." But I saw it then. Fear. Tiny. Brief. Gone almost instantly. Yet real. Claire smiled afterward and continued adjusting her earrings. But her movements lost their rhythm slightly. That was the first moment she realized I might not be as unaware as she believed. Later that night, after she left, I sat alone in the quiet house listening to the grandfather clock near the stairs ticking steadily through the darkness. Funny thing about lies. Once people believe them for long enough, they stop preparing for consequences. Claire thought she was managing me emotionally. Ryan probably thought he was slowly replacing me. Neither of them understood the same thing yet. I was already learning how to leave before either one of them noticed the marriage had ended. September arrived colder than expected that year. Early wind rolled down from the Rockies carrying the first hints of winter through Denver streets while leaves collected along curbs in damp golden piles. Inside our house things felt colder too, though neither Claire nor I acknowledged it directly. We had become experts at emotional weather avoidance. She kept performing normalcy. I kept documenting reality. Somewhere in the middle, the actual marriage quietly died without ceremony. The strangest part was how confident Claire had become. Once people stop fearing consequences, arrogance starts replacing caution. She no longer hid certain things carefully. Weekend conferences became overnight trips. Her phone stayed locked tighter than ever, but emotionally she had already checked out enough to stop managing details. One Wednesday evening, she walked through the front door around 10:30 smelling faintly like hotel shampoo and expensive perfume. Rain tapped softly against the windows while local news murmured from the television in the background. I sat on the couch reviewing emails on my laptop when she entered. "Sorry I am late," she sighed dramatically while setting down her purse. Flight delays were a nightmare. Flight delays. Interesting choice of words considering her office conference supposedly happened 40 minutes away in Boulder. I looked up calmly. "Sounds exhausting." Claire loosened her coat and gave me a tired smile. "You have no idea." But I did. Earlier that afternoon, Daniel had forwarded me hotel invoices connected to a shared rewards account Claire apparently forgot existed. Aspen Ridge Resort. Downtown Denver. 2 nights. 1 room. Paid partially using our joint credit card. Funny how betrayal eventually collapses under the weight of ordinary paperwork. Claire walked into the kitchen and poured herself sparkling water while I watched quietly from the couch. There was no adrenaline left anymore. No panic. Just observation. Like studying structural damage after the building already failed inspection months earlier. Ryan says next quarter might mean more travel too, she said casually from the kitchen. There it was again. Ryan's name flowing naturally through our house like he belonged inside the architecture now. That must make him happy, I answered evenly. Claire paused slightly before turning toward me. What is that supposed to mean? I shrugged calmly. Nothing. Silence stretched briefly between us while rain continued sliding down the windows behind her. Then Claire laughed softly and shook her head. You have been acting strange for months, Ethan. Strange. That word stayed with me after she went upstairs. Strange because I stopped reacting emotionally on cue. Strange because I no longer chased explanations. Strange because men become difficult to manipulate once they stop begging for reassurance. 2 days later, the real shift happened. I came home Friday evening to find Claire sitting at the dining room table surrounded by paperwork and wine glasses. Soft jazz drifted through the house while candles flickered near the kitchen island like she was staging a scene from a marriage neither of us still lived inside. Can we talk? She asked carefully. My stomach tightened instantly. Calm voices are dangerous in long marriages. They usually arrive right before life changes permanently. I sat across from her slowly while she folded her hands together on the table. I think we have grown apart, she began softly. There it was, the corporate language of emotional abandonment. Not betrayal, not accountability, just mutual drift. Claire looked down briefly before continuing. I do not know if either of us are happy anymore. The fascinating thing was how prepared she sounded. Measured pauses, controlled sadness, rehearsed vulnerability, like someone who had practiced difficult conversations mentally long before having them. What are you saying? I asked quietly. Claire inhaled slowly. Maybe we should consider some time apart. Time apart. Another polished phrase people use when they want freedom without immediate consequences. I studied her carefully across candlelight reflecting against crystal wine glasses. Claire looked nervous, but underneath the nerves I noticed something else too. Expectation. She thought this conversation would emotionally destabilize me. She thought I would panic, negotiate, maybe even blame myself enough to give her control of the narrative moving forward. Instead, I simply nodded once. Okay, I said calmly. That answer visibly unsettled her. Tiny reaction, barely there, but real, because for the first time since the affair started, Claire realized she no longer understood what I was thinking. And people grow very uncomfortable once their emotional leverage disappears. After that conversation at the dining room table, the atmosphere inside our house changed immediately. Claire became cautious again, not fully afraid yet, but alert in the way people become when they realize control is slipping through their fingers. She started studying me more carefully during conversations, watching for emotional cracks she could still predict. The problem for her was simple. I had already grieved the marriage privately months earlier. By October, the trees around our subdivision stood nearly bare beneath cold gray skies while early snow dusted the mountains west of Denver. The house itself felt quieter now. Claire spent more nights working late, and I spent more evenings alone on the patio beneath the outdoor heater, listening to football games through the open kitchen window while reviewing documents Daniel kept helping me organize. Financial statements, shared accounts, property records. Every spreadsheet felt strangely unemotional by then, like autopsy paperwork after the body already cooled. One Thursday evening, Claire walked into the living room holding 2 glasses of wine and sat beside me carefully on the couch. Soft piano music drifted from the kitchen speaker while rain moved against the windows in steady silver lines. I feel like we barely talk anymore, she said quietly. I accepted the wine glass but did not drink from it immediately. Maybe there is not much left to say. Claire looked down at her hands. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Interesting sentence. Not sad, not apologetic, strategic, like someone frustrated a negotiation was becoming inconvenient. What exactly is this? I asked calmly. She inhaled slowly before speaking. I think we both deserve a chance to be happy. There it was again. The language people use when they want to rewrite betrayal into mutual evolution. Claire still wanted the moral high ground without admitting how she climbed there. I watched rain slide down the windows behind her, while the room filled with soft yellow lamplight and the faint smell of cinnamon candles she always bought during fall. Are you seeing someone else? I asked quietly. The question landed heavily between us. Claire blinked once, twice. Then came the performance. Hurt expression, disbelief, controlled offense. Seriously? She asked softly. That is what you think of me? Funny thing about liars. They almost always answer emotion before facts. I held her gaze evenly. I asked a simple question. Claire shook her head slowly and looked away toward the fireplace. No, she answered finally. There is nobody else. The lie arrived smoother than breathing. And in that moment something inside me finally detached completely. Not because she lied. I expected that. It was the ease that finished things emotionally for me. 14 years together, and she could still look directly into my eyes while protecting another man more carefully than protecting our marriage. Later that night, after Claire went upstairs, I remained alone in the dark living room listening to the grandfather clock tick softly near the staircase. Outside, headlights moved across wet streets while cold autumn wind pushed leaves against the curb. I sat there for a long time thinking about how strange human relationships really are. People believe betrayal begins when somebody chooses another person. I do not think that is true anymore. Betrayal begins the moment someone decides your reality is less important than their comfort. Around midnight, my phone buzzed softly on the coffee table. A message from Daniel. The investigator finished the report. Attached were photographs, hotel entries, dinner reservations, timestamps. Ryan and Claire walking together through downtown Denver holding hands outside Aspen Ridge after midnight beneath hotel lights. Not graphic, not dramatic, just undeniable. I stared at the photos silently while blue light from the screen reflected across the empty room. Funny enough, I did not feel rage looking at them. I felt clarity. The kind that arrives after a storm finally moves far enough away for you to see the damage clearly in daylight. Upstairs, Claire slept peacefully inside the house we built together while proof of her second life glowed quietly in my hands. And somewhere between the rain outside and the silence inside me, I realized the next conversation we had would not be emotional anymore. It would be final. The confrontation happened 3 weeks before Christmas. Denver was buried beneath fresh snow by then, the kind that softens sound and makes entire neighborhoods feel suspended in silence. Lights glowed from rooftops along our subdivision while cold blue evening shadows stretched across frozen sidewalks. Inside the house Claire had decorated early that year. Garland wrapped around the staircase. Cinnamon candles burned near the fireplace. Soft jazz Christmas music drifted quietly through the living room speakers. From the outside, we still looked like a couple preparing for the holidays together. That almost made it worse. I came home just after 6 carrying a leather folder beneath my arm, while snow melted slowly from my boots onto the hardwood floor near the entryway. Claire stood in the kitchen pouring red wine into 2 glasses when I walked in. "You are home early," she said with a surprised smile. "Roads are terrible tonight." I removed my coat carefully and hung it near the door. "We need to talk." Something in my voice must have reached her immediately because the smile faded before she could hide the reaction. Claire set the wine bottle down slowly. "Okay," she said cautiously. We sat across from each other at the dining room table where months earlier she first suggested time apart, beneath candlelight and rehearsed sadness. Funny how rooms remember things. Outside, snow drifted steadily beneath streetlights while silence settled heavily between us. I placed the leather folder gently onto the table. Claire looked at it without touching it. "What is this?" she asked quietly. "The truth," I answered. For the first time in months, she looked genuinely nervous. I opened the folder slowly and slid several photographs across the table toward her. Hotel timestamps, restaurant receipts, images of her and Ryan entering Aspen Ridge together late at night beneath downtown lights. Claire stared at the papers without breathing for several seconds. Then came denial first. Always denial. You followed me? She whispered sharply. Interesting how quickly guilty people attack methods instead of facts. I kept my voice calm. Do not insult both of us by pretending you care how I found out. Claire's eyes moved rapidly across the photographs again while color slowly drained from her face. Ethan, she started softly. Please let me explain. Explain. Another dangerous word. People only ask for explanations after truth corners them. I leaned back slightly in my chair and studied the woman across from me. 14 years together, and somehow this was the first completely honest conversation we had in months. How long? I asked quietly. Claire swallowed hard before answering. It was not supposed to happen like this. Not an answer. Just emotional fog meant to soften accountability. How long? I repeated calmly. Her eyes filled slightly then, though even that felt complicated now. Real emotion mixed with fear. Almost a year, she admitted finally. Funny enough, hearing the actual timeline did not hurt as much as I expected. Maybe because emotionally I already knew months ago. Claire stared down at the table while snow continued falling outside the windows in soft white waves. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. That sentence almost broke me more than the affair itself. Because somewhere along the way she convinced herself betrayal and pain were separate things. I nodded slowly and slid another document across the table. Legal separation paperwork. Financial records. Account transfers already completed. Claire looked up sharply then. What is this? Protection, I answered evenly. Real panic appeared for the first time after that. Genuine panic. You already did all this? She asked quietly. Months ago. The room went silent except for faint Christmas music drifting from the speakers behind us. Claire looked at me differently then. Not as a husband. Not as someone emotionally predictable. For the first time she realized I had not been drowning while she built another relationship. I had been preparing. Ryan does not know any of this yet, does he? I asked finally. Claire lowered her eyes immediately. That answer told me everything. Even now she was still protecting him first. I stood slowly from the table and looked around the house one last time. The stockings above the fireplace. The snow outside. The marriage sitting dead between us while holiday music played softly in the background. Claire's voice cracked quietly behind me. Ethan, please. I paused near the hallway without turning around. Then I said the only honest thing left. You stopped being my wife long before I stopped loving you. January arrived brutally cold after the separation papers were signed. Snowstorms rolled across Colorado every few days, covering good answer left. The fantasy collapsed exactly the way most fantasies do once reality arrives carrying consequences. Ryan lost interest once the relationship stopped being secret and exciting. Claire lost the version of herself she thought the affair would create. And I lost a marriage long before either of them admitted the truth out loud. Later that afternoon, I drove alone into the mountains west of Denver with no destination in mind. Snow lined the highways in heavy white walls while pine trees stood dark against frozen ridges beneath low winter clouds. I rolled the truck windows down slightly despite the cold and let sharp mountain air fill the cab while old country songs played quietly through the speakers. Somewhere near Idaho Springs, I pulled over beside a frozen overlook and stepped out into complete silence. The kind you only find far away from cities and complicated people. Wind moved softly through the trees while snow crunched beneath my boots. I stood there staring across miles of white mountains and finally understood something that took me almost a year to learn. Betrayal does not destroy you the moment you discover it. First, it rewrites you slowly, teaches you how to doubt your instincts, how to question your memories, how to sit across from someone you love while realizing they already left emotionally months ago. But eventually, if you survive the confusion long enough, clarity arrives too. Cold, quiet, permanent. I reached into my coat pocket and looked down at my wedding ring resting in my palm beneath pale winter sunlight. 14 years reduced to a small circle of gold and silence. Then slowly, without anger or ceremony, I slipped it into the center console of the truck and closed it gently. Some endings do not need dramatic speeches. Sometimes the real ending happens the moment you stop carrying the weight of someone else's dishonesty. I stood there another minute listening to mountain wind move through the frozen trees before climbing back into the truck alone. And for the first time in a very long time, alone no longer felt like losing.